we walk every day on a solid surface. The soil and rock beneath our heels provide a sense of security, an immutable foundation supporting the entirety of human civilization. But that is merely an illusion sustained by the limits of our senses. The reality deep beneath that structure is entirely contrary to what we were once taught in school. If you compress the entire history of humanity into a single second, then throughout that entire second, our species has only been walking on a thin rocky membrane with a thickness less than 1% of the planet's radius. We pride ourselves on satellite maps sharp down to the square meter on the surface, yet we are completely blind to what occurs at the 11th kilometer beneath our heels. The deep earth is not a rigid, dead block of stone. It is breathing, it is sweating, and it is imprisoning liquid entities older than the very oceans we see. There are oceans of absolute darkness, completely unexplored, lying dormant right beneath our feet. Water is not just a liquid compound flowing on the surface. It is a colossal mechanical system, a tectonic lubricant, and the origin nourishing alien ecosystems right inside the earth. Going deep into the earth to find water is, in truth, a journey of looking into a mirror to see the survival limits of humanity. Each extraordinary place found underground does not just tell a story of geology, it strips bare the fragility of the world above. For this world is still full of astonishing things, and we have only just scratched the outer shell of a mysterious, water-bearing planet. The flashlight beam sweeps across colossal concrete pillars weighing 500 tons, as tall as a 5-story building. The sound of dripping water echoes lonely, creating a somber ambience in a vast space that seems to have no end. There is no music, no urban noise, only darkness and the absolute silence of an abandoned underground temple. How can a hollow structure with a volume equivalent to a skyscraper exist at a depth of 50 meters beneath one of the most seismically hazardous metropolises on the planet without being crushed to dust by the pressure of earth and stone? And why is a space capable of holding millions of tons of matter kept in absolute silence for 360 days a year? The truth is not science fiction, yet it contains a primal fear. This structure is completely empty because it was designed for a single purpose: to become a giant funnel bearing the wrath of floodwaters from super typhoons striking Tokyo. The system consists of 5 giant silos connected to each other by a pipeline over 6 kilometers long, 50 meters deep underground. When water levels in the surface rivers exceed safety thresholds, water will be drawn into here and pushed out into the Edo River by extremely powerful jet aircraft engines. Human technology has reached its peak when it can redirect an entire underground river in a matter of minutes. But what will happen if a record-breaking super earthquake accompanied by a historic tsunami sweeps through, exceeding all calculations of these turbines? Current science still cannot provide a definitive answer. The existence of this megastructure proves that the survival of a modern metropolis on the surface is a temporary compromise with nature. Humans are forced to construct giant voids underground in exchange for a brief safety above. The metropolis does not only grow toward the sky, it is the underground darkness beneath our feet that decides whether we still exist tomorrow. A body of water so crystal clear it is virtually invisible, giving divers the sensation of hovering in a weightless void. But as they go deeper, the diver suddenly pierces through a thick cloud of sulfurous mist, where the boundary between freshwater and underground saltwater separates, creating a strange optical phenomenon. Why can an underground river network, hundreds of kilometers long, hidden deep within limestone, be both the origin of a supreme faith and the cause of the sudden demise of a brilliant empire? How does groundwater hold the life force of a civilization? Many people think that cenotes are just harmless natural sinkholes. In reality, to the ancient Maya, this was Xibalba, the gateway to the underworld and the sole source of water keeping this land, without surface rivers alive through devastating dry seasons. The Yucatan Peninsula completely lacks open rivers because all rainwater has permeated through the soft limestone layer, forming the Sac-Acton underground river system. When decades-long droughts struck, the Maya fell into despair. They began performing human sacrifice rituals down into these waterholes to beg the underworld gods to appease their anger. But how vast the map of this labyrinth of darkness is, humanity has still not been able to fully chart to this day. Each year, explorers find new turns filled with human bones and even fossils of ancient mammoths. The moment, a rare ray of sunlight pierces through a small hole in the cave ceiling, shining straight down onto the underground toxic cloud of hydrogen sulfide. It creates a surreal ribbon of color, like an upside-down night sky beneath the water. Humans always worship what nourishes them, but at the same time, tremble before its untouchable mysteries. Our civilization may be great, but it can collapse entirely just because of the quiet shifting of underground aquifers. A satellite radar scan map displays a colossal blue streak covering a vast area equal to France and Germany combined. But if you look with the naked eye or through conventional satellite imagery, you will see nothing but endless fields and cities, because this ocean lies hidden deep beneath the thick basalt layers of 4 nations. How can a giant reservoir capable of providing drinking water to all of humanity for 2 centuries exist in complete stillness and without borders beneath the earth of nations in intense geopolitical dispute? We often envision groundwater as small streams trickling through cracks in the soil. That is a misconception. Here, a colossal ocean of fresh water is imprisoned inside ancient sandstones from the Jurassic period. This system was filled with water millions of years ago through a perfect natural filtration process. The thick basalt layer above acts as a supergrade protective membrane, keeping the water source so pure that it can be bottled directly right as it is pumped to the surface without any chemical treatment technology. However, an existential question remains unanswered. What is the natural recharge rate of this system? If we exploit it too quickly, will the geological structure beneath South America suffer widespread subsidence? There are moments when an oil drill punctures the wrong location, and suddenly a high-pressure column of hot water erupts in the middle of a field, carrying water from the era of ancient creatures. The geopolitical maps of humans attempt to divide boundaries and ownership, but the planet's greatest survival resource connects us all unconditionally in the dark. The true wealth of a nation in the future will not be measured by oil reserves, but determined by the depth and cleanliness of the groundwater they possess. Giant steel pipes with a diameter of 4 meters lie exposed and bare under the scorching 50 degrees Celsius heat of the Sahara Desert. Inside those burning steel tubes, millions of cubic meters of ice-cold water are rushing through the burning dunes. This is humanity's great man-made river mega-project. Why does one of the driest and most hostile places on Earth possess a colossal freshwater reserve hundreds of times larger than all the major surface rivers combined? How can hot sand hide a sea of water? Audiences always believe that the Sahara has always been a dead land since the dawn of creation. The truth is, this water source is fossil water from 10,000 years ago, a time when the Sahara was still a lush savanna with rich flora and continuous torrential rains. The harsh subsequent desertification buried the entire surface, but the Nubian sandstone layer beneath retained all that ancient water like a giant sponge perfectly sealed from solar evaporation. Modern humans are using mining technology to excavate the past. But this water source is a finite and non-renewable resource. When the final drop of fossil water is pumped up, the Sahara will permanently become a dead desert in the truest sense, which no technology can salvage. No one knows exactly when that day will be. Amidst the bone-dry, burning sands of Libya, a groundwater valve is opened and cool water from the Ice Age erupts, creating a man-made oasis out of nothing. This reality exposes the pride yet complete desperation of humans when they must borrow resources from the past to sustain a temporary existence for the present. The desert does not lack water. It only hides the life stream in the deepest place to protect it from the destruction of the atmosphere. A cave explorer dangles on a slender rope in the middle of an abyss as black as ink. The violent roar of an underground waterfall echoes up from a depth of over 2 kilometers beneath the earth, a sound so loud it shakes all the surrounding granite walls, overpowering every human scream. What happens when you're standing at the deepest bottom of the planet, surrounded by eternal darkness, and suddenly hear the sound of water rising at the speed of a high-speed train? How can you escape from the deep earth? We often think deep caves only contain dirt, silent rocks, and a suffocating atmosphere. In reality, at the very end of darkness are rushing rivers, deep blue lakes, and underground flash floods that can crush an experienced expedition team in just a few short minutes. The Arabica limestone massif has been eroded by rainwater over millions of years, creating a network of giant vertical siphons. Water from melting snow on the mountain peaks rushes down to the bottom of the cave at terrifying speeds, creating swift underground rivers at the Earth's record depths. However, where does this underground river system ultimately empty beneath the Black Sea? The precise hydrological map of this deep bottom zone remains a black box full of unknowns for contemporary scientists. The moment of discovering the lake named the Captain's Nemo, at a depth of over 2,000 meters, the water surface is as still as a mirror, reflecting the flashlight of humans for the first time after billions of years of solitude. The extreme curiosity of humans is a strange energy. We accept risking our lives just to touch the deepest point of the planet's flow. The Earth has an underground blood circulatory system just as violent and complex as the great surface river systems. The mechanical drill bit of scientists pulls up an ice core long from a depth of 4 kilometers. The ice transitions from the opaque white of compressed snow to a clarity like premium crystal. That is not ice formed from the atmosphere, it is fossil lake water frozen at the deep bottom boundary. How can a giant lake, equivalent in size to a Great Lake in North America, maintain itself completely in a liquid state under the crushing pressure of an ice tower 4 kilometers thick in the coldest temperature conditions on the planet? According to conventional logic, under the extreme pressure and bone-chilling cold of Antarctica, every liquid must freeze rock solid. But reality has shattered that certainty. Extreme pressure from the colossal ice mass above has lowered the freezing point of water, while silent geothermal energy from the Earth's core warms the lake bed, keeping the water liquid for millions of years. Lake Vostok has been completely isolated from Earth's atmosphere and light for 15 million years. The water here is extremely rich in oxygen due to the ice layer melting continuously from above, pressed down with monstrous pressure. Are there ancient organisms with hitherto unknown geological structures swimming in this hyper-oxygenated lake? Every sampling effort by humans must be extremely careful to avoid contaminating this pristine ecosystem. The ground-penetrating radar scanner displays a perfectly flat, serene void lying beneath the undulating ice, a beach of darkness existing independently of the world above. Lake Vostok is a natural laboratory for humans to understand how life can exist on icy moons in outer space. Ice is not just a force that destroys life, it can be a perfect cocoon preserving a primordial ocean through millions of years of the planet's ups and downs. A scientist wearing a toxic hazard suit presses their face down toward a pocket of milky white groundwater. The atmosphere is thick with the rotten egg smell of toxic hydrogen sulfide gas. On the water's surface, hundreds of blind scorpions, centipedes, and ghostly white distorted spiders are crawling around, hunting and reproducing in the silence. Why does a tiny pocket of groundwater, completely severed from sunlight and the Earth's conventional water cycle for 5 million years, have a density of life thicker and more complex than a tropical rainforest on the surface? Our understanding says, no light means no photosynthesis, and without photosynthesis, life cannot exist. This place has shattered that bias. Life here does not need the sun. It relies on a process called chemosynthesis from specialized bacteria that feed on toxic gases emanating from the groundwater source. Removal Cave is the first terrestrial ecosystem discovered to rely entirely on chemical energy instead of light energy. The groundwater here contains a large amount of chemicals deadly to humans, but serves as an endless source of mother's milk for the biological network here. How did these creatures survive through the planet's brutal ice ages without genetic degradation? Their adaptation and cellular repair mechanisms remain a major mystery to modern medicine. The moment an infrared camera records an underground water spider hunting in absolute darkness, using vibrations on the toxic water surface to precisely locate its target. The human definition of life is too narrow and selfish. We think we need the sun, but the Earth proves that life will always find its own way in the most extreme conditions. There is a second biosphere, completely independent and alien, silently accompanying us beneath the Earth. The air temperature touches 60 degrees Celsius. The roar of industrial air conditioners echoes hopelessly in the narrow tunnels. From the fractures of the stone wall at a depth of 4 kilometers underground, scalding drops of water seep out slowly. Scientists must use sterile test tubes to catch each of those precious drops of water with the utmost care. How can a species live solitary in an ancient groundwater pocket 4 kilometers deep, completely isolated from any other organism on the planet throughout millions of years of evolution? This question challenges every biological limit. At this terrifying depth, people once believed that water was merely a sterile liquid because extreme temperature and pressure would scorch any biological cellular structure. But in those scalding drops of water, they found a unique species of bacteria. It lives completely alone. It is an ecosystem of only a single species, self-sustaining without the need for a food chain. This bacterium does not eat light, nor does it eat toxic gas. It feeds on the byproducts of the natural radioactive decay of uranium in the rock surrounding the water source. It uses the nuclear energy of the Earth to split water molecules to sustain life. Are there even deeper water systems where these radiation-eating organisms are creating an underground network covering the entire continental crust that we have never known of? When reading the DNA sequence of this organism, scientists were stunned to realize it possesses every gene necessary to survive independently without any symbiotic relationship with the outside world. An absolute solitary traveler of nature. The solitude of this organism mirrors the loneliness of humanity in the vast universe. But it has still survived strongly through millions of years. Nuclear energy is not a human invention. The Earth has used it to nourish life in the deep waters since billions of years ago. A rusty metal cap tightly welded with 12 large bolts lies quietly on the crumbling concrete floor of an abandoned research station in Siberia. That is the mouth of the Kola super-deep borehole. Deep beneath this metal cap, which is a mere 23 centimeters wide, lies a geological mystery that has overturned all mathematical models of Earth's structure. Why did scientists find liquid water at a depth of 7,000 meters, where the monstrous pressures of the rock tower above assert that stone has been squeezed so tightly that not a single water molecule could exist or pass through? Every textbook asserts that the deeper one goes into the Earth's core. The drier, denser, and more plastic, the rock becomes due to rising pressure and temperature. But the reality at the Kola borehole slapped a bucket of cold water onto the confidence of scientists. The rock at this depth is full of fractures and saturated with liquid water. But this is not rainwater or surface water seeping down. Water at this depth is created from the very atoms of hydrogen and oxygen squeezed out of the mineral bonds of the rock under extreme pressure. Because the granite layer above is too thick and hard, this primordial water cannot escape to evaporate, turning the deep earth into a soaked sponge in a state of super high pressure. Is the water generated from this rock the true origin that created our surface oceans through ancient volcanic eruptions? When the drill pulls up mud mixed with water from a depth of 7 kilometers, analytical instruments show it is full of bubbling hydrogen gas bubbles, a scream of water imprisoned for billions of years inside the deep stone. Humans realize their proud technology is easily defeated by the heat of the Earth's core when the drill bit melts at a depth of 12 kilometers. The Earth is not a dry, hard sphere of rock. It is a colossal chemical factory producing water from within the deep stone itself. A tiny, scarred and rough diamond was found in a deep mine in Brazil. Inside, that diamond of no jewelry value is a small, dark flaw. Under the electron microscope of the laboratory, that flaw was identified as the mineral ringwoodite. And deep inside the structure of that mineral is the presence of water ions. Could you believe that a colossal ocean containing 3 times more water than all the surface oceans combined lies deep inside the transition zone of the Earth's mantle? How can water exist in a place that is the fountainhead of molten magma flows? At a depth of 500 kilometers, where temperatures reach thousands of degrees Celsius, water cannot exist in a liquid, gaseous, or solid state as humans know it. It is locked tightly inside the molecular structure of the mineral ringwoodite at the atomic level. This mineral acts as a colossal water storage facility for the planet. Without this atomic water, lowering viscosity and softening the mantle, tectonic plates on the surface would stop moving, volcanoes would extinguish, continents would die, and Earth would become a dry, cold planet like Mars. But how can we precisely calculate the volume of this ocean of darkness when not a single human drill can touch that depth? All current understanding of science must rely on measuring the speed of seismic waves traveling through the Earth after each major earthquake. That tiny and ugly diamond is the sole letter sent from a depth of 500 kilometers to the surface, carrying irrefutable evidence of a colossal water-bearing world that humanity has never seen with its own eyes. We are living on a fragile crust floating above a planet lubricated by an underground atomic ocean. The existence of human civilization is an absolute geological stroke of luck. The blue oceans on the world map are only a tiny visible fraction. The real ocean lies in the eternal darkness of the planet's core. The journey through 10 geological layers is not a sequence of dry statistical data or scientific facts. It is a stripping bare of human perception. We entered this journey with the firm belief that we are the masters of the planet, that we have understood the structure of the home we live in. But when confronting underground rivers roaring beneath deep caves, bacteria eating radiation to survive at a depth of 4 kilometers, or a colossal atomic ocean hiding within the mantle rock, we are forced to admit a truth: humans understand far less than they think. This world does not operate according to the narrow boxes of thinking of surface science. Stone can sweat water under extreme pressure. Dense ice is the perfect cocoon protecting a primordial ocean, and the harshest desert is actually floating on an ancient sea of fresh water. These realities prove that reality is always stranger than any science fiction novel humans could ever write. We spend billions of dollars launching modern spacecraft into the vastness of space to find a trace of water on Mars or distant planets. while remaining completely ignorant of the oceans of darkness, whispering right beneath our heels. The world is still full of astonishing things, and its grandeur lies in its refusal to be completely understood by human technology. The 10 dark worlds we have just passed through are not dry chapters of geology textbooks. They are 10 fractures on the proud wall of human perception. We claim to be the rulers of the surface. We build skyscrapers, redraw national borders, and launch our gaze looking for a drop of water on planets millions of light years away. But what is reality? The reality is that we are floating on a fragile rocky membrane, lubricated by a colossal atomic ocean deep inside the Earth. The survival of the entire human civilization, from the ancient empires that collapsed in the deep caves of the Yucatan to the modern metropolises holding their breath beneath Tokyo, has never been in our hands. It lies in the hands of the fossil water depleting beneath the Sahara Desert. It lies in the hands of the bacteria eating radiation to silently maintain chemical balance at a depth of 4 kilometers. Our existence is not a cosmic given. It is a geological tolerance. When darkness falls tonight and you look up at the stars, take a moment to feel the ground beneath your feet. Deep through the concrete, through the solid granite strata, the liquid blood of the planet is still flowing in eternal darkness. It knows not the names of nations, cares not for the dreams of humans. It is only silently keeping our world from collapsing into the void. We understand less than we think. And that is exactly why this world will always be a marvel.